If you have a 75mm cannon, just like a tank, but you're a few times faster and no one can hide from you as you are always above them, that probably means that you are a duck. I mean Henschel HS-129 B-3, which in War Thunder is known as duck, because when you think of something that has 2 engines and a gun that destroys tanks, the first association is peaceful domesticated animal. In this video I will show its gameplay, what it can do, share my insights, some tips, and of course give very biased, unprofessional and untrustworthy rating of this vehicle. The most interesting is its cannon, which is unusually large. The main gun has similar caliber as tanks have at these battle ratings, so it uses very similar ammunition as well. Just if in case of ground vehicles you are able to choose a different ammo type after each shot, which allows you to have the best round for each situation. When spawning this plane you choose only 1 out of 3 different belts and live with that decision, unable to change it for the rest of the battle, or at least until you get killed in game. This responsible choice is also a simple one. There are 3 ammunition belts to choose from, all of them contain 13 shells of a single type. High explosive rounds will be just like when they are used on tanks. Useless. In theory they can be used against very soft targets, but 10mm of penetration are not enough to damage anything else. High velocity armor piercing works the same as sub-caliber shells. It has less mass, which allows it to reach higher velocities using the same amount of propellant. That results in shell that has more penetration, but decreased mass negatively affects its post-penetration damage. And my favorite, armor-piercing high explosive, which explodes inside the opponent's tank, making a lot of damage, often enough to one-shot opponent's vehicle. Most importantly, shell's penetration is still pretty good. Not every ground vehicle has gun like one on this plane. There are very few vehicles having thick enough armor to resist it. Ricochets happen only when shell hits the armor at really weird angles, so you can be almost sure that most of your shells will successfully penetrate and deal damage to any opponent from any direction. And considering that you as a plane can attack from above, penetrating their roofs, there will be no ground vehicles able to resist your shots. KV-1 will have the thickest roof you can face, 40mm, and it's a joke for APHE shell with over 100mm of penetration. It is the best projectile for the main gun as it allows you to both penetrate enough armor and deal significant amount of damage. Even Gaijin pushes you to use this projectile. It is a default shell available as soon as you buy this plane. When dealing with soft vehicles, they have no armor to activate the fuse of APHE round. Sometimes those are still hull broken by sheer size of 75mm projectile, but if that doesn't work, the plane has 2 additional machine guns. They are low caliber, so only very soft targets such as open-top vehicles can be damaged, which usually are SPAAs, so you might want to stay away from those anyway. That makes machine guns rarely useful. For convenience, so I don't have to use separate buttons for different weaponry anymore, I researched a stealth belt for machine guns early on to stop their tracers from interfering with the main gun's tracer. But that was not the most important research. If at first I thought that playing with a tank cannon is a very cool idea but difficult to use in practice, my attitude towards this plane changed significantly after researching new 75mm cannon modification. It will significantly reduce weapon spread. Until then, every round will fly differently even if your aim is perfect, so research it as soon as possible. Only after that unlock flight performance upgrades, but don't expect a lot of improvement here. Duck has quite weak engines carrying big cannon, and that shows up in its performance. First of all, the most convenient way to repeatedly engage ground unit is when after the attack you pull the nose up until the plane flips over in vertical axis. That allows to quickly gain some altitude to engage the target again as soon as possible. At the same time, altitude gives better overview of the battlefield, and attacking tanks' roof is always the safest option for guaranteed penetration. But that will also consume a lot of energy, and after few of such maneuvers, you won't be able to do that unless you gain some altitude first. Or another example, when one of your engines gets damaged, your fight is over. As soon as that happens, plane will start losing altitude, slowly but consistently. Continuing the fight becomes impossible, and in my practice I was never able to reach the airfield with only one engine, so usually just crashed into someone as there is really nothing else can be done. But the worst case scenario for not maneuverable aircraft is when it faces enemy planes. Let's put it this way. Sometimes things go south, and ducks go south every winter. When there are enemy planes in the air, try to destroy as many tanks as you can before you are shot down, because duck is so bad at dogfighting that even heavy attackers with bombs can outmaneuver it. And considering that it's one of these few twin-engine planes that have no gunners, it is a sitting duck for enemy planes. Of course, sometimes opponents make mistakes and for some reason end up in front of you during their attack. But even then you will run into problems, as low-cal machine guns don't do a lot of damage anyway, while the main 75mm cannon deals more than enough damage, but with a rate of fire of one shot every 2 seconds, it's not so easy to use it against planes that are always in motion. In some cases I found it helpful to fly around friendly respawn, hoping that anti-aircraft vehicles will help me. And when you have to rely on teammates, it already indicates how desperate you can become when duck is under attack. So if possible, before dogfight begins, I try to attack planes head-on to avoid maneuvering altogether. The duck's pilot has no engine in front, but instead there are 6 to 12mm plates surrounding him, and as usual, bulletproof glass. So even if your weaponry is not the best choice to fight planes, attacking head-on is not necessarily a death sentence. When opponents fly straight into you, it's a little bit easier to hit them after all. You might be lucky enough to snipe them from very far away without even taking damage. As long as enemy fighters are not on your tail, there are at least slim chances to take them down. Overall, duck was very fun to play. Yes, it has its downsides, mostly related with maneuverability, but it is very effective against enemy ground units. I would rate it 7 ducks out of 10. Unlike other fighters that drop their bombs and then no longer able to fight armored ground units, duck has 13 shots available, and each shot offers reliable penetration and enough damage to instantly destroy any tank. If you will be able to one-shot opponents mostly depends if you hit the crew compartment or engine, just like when playing tanks. Just in case of the plane that is always on the move and you have limited amount of time to attack, it's much harder to aim at the specific part of a vehicle. But on the other hand, camping opponents are no longer a problem. Enemies cannot hide behind rocks, buildings or hills where they are difficult to reach by ground vehicles. Even their armor doesn't matter, as no one has roof able to withstand anti-tank cannon. So if someone can cover you from enemy planes, duck can significantly impact situation on the ground.